as we continue on today's episode, PFN Daily, we're now getting into our mailbag questions here for Trey Wingo. Kevin Olter in the chat says, is the Rams super team method the future of the NFL, especially as we see the salary cap start to rise?
Yeah, listen, I don't think as many people are going to be as aggressive as Les Snead is, but I think it's proven you can do it. But to do it, you have to have a couple of things. You have to have a real faith from the rest of the front office and the owner, like Stan Kroenke and Kevin Demoff for the Rams. And you have to have a personnel department that can find a Cooper Kupp outside of the first round, that can find a Robert Woods outside of the first round. Like, the only reason it works for the Rams is because when they use draft picks, they use them pretty well. Tyler Higbee was a guy that was not taken in the first round. Van Jefferson, although he struggled in the Super Bowl, was not taken in the first round. Like, you have to have really good hits on those other things. And when you make a gamble, they better pay off. Now, the Rams have made two gambles that didn't really pay off. They gave up a first rounder for Brandon Cooks, right? And then they gave up 2 firsts for Jared Goff, and then subsequently traded Goff and 2 more first round picks for Matthew Stafford. I did text Les the other day. I said, I'm going to call you Frank Sinatra now because you did it your way. And he sort of chuckled at that and said, yeah, we'll talk. It's possible, but you better have the complete backing of your leadership of your organization, and your scouting department better be damn good, because you can't give away, and I say give away loosely, you can't opt to not draft young players in the first round and not make sure when you give them away or let them go to somebody else, you don't come away with a proven player like a Ramsey or an Aaron Donald, or a Matthew Stafford. Because if you better be right. If you're going to do it that way, you better be right, and your personnel department better be really good. And the Rams have been right a lot, and their personnel department is really good.
I think those are some great questions. Obviously, Kevin Nolter throwing in. Ben Rolfe asked this question: what does this victory mean for the legacy of Matthew Stafford? Does he need another Super Bowl win to be assured of a Hall of Fame spot?
Yeah, I saw that Hall of Fame talk. If he wins, I'm like, really? Like, don't get me wrong. I love Matthew Stafford. He's a great player. But right now, I couldn't say, oh, yeah, Hall of Famer, just because you like a Super Bowl win should not decide whether you are not a Hall of Famer. Like, that is, to me, that is a team award. Teams win games. Teams win championships. Teams win Super Bowls. Cooper Kupp helped win. Aaron Donald helped win. There are a million things that went right for the Rams to win. I didn't look at that game and say, well, Matthew Stafford was the only reason they won. Matthew Stafford was a part, and a big part, especially down the stretch, of their ability to win that game. But like, when Peyton won his second Super Bowl in Denver and people looked at him differently, like, man, you guys are crazy. He was the 33rd most important Bronco in that game. And as a Bronco fan, Cody, you know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spot
so
on.
like, for people to say, oh, now I look at him differently because he has 2 rings, start watching bowling. Okay, go take up Premier League football, because you don't understand the National Football League. This win will not, especially for grizzled writers, they're not going to look at him and say, well, he's definitely a Hall of Famer now. I think he's 34 years old. He's in a really good situation, because I think they have the ability to re-sign Odell with the way they can structure the contract. So he's going to have Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Odell Beckham Jr. healthy, hopefully at some point next year. He needs to have more consistent seasons like he had this year, when he had 41 touchdown passes, and avoid the 17 interceptions, which tied a rookie quarterback for the most in the NFL. I do not believe in any way, shape, or form this elevates Matthew Stafford to Hall of Fame conversation. I believe it puts him in a better spot to put up more numbers over the next 4 or 5 years that would potentially elevate him to that Hall of Fame conversation.
I think that's a fair point that you make as well. Ollie Hodgkins says, when is he going to get a bigger boat? I mean, Ollie, that's a great question right there. A real football question here for you now, Trey. Dale Green says, the USFL draft happens today. The season kicks off in April. Have you pledged your allegiance to any team just yet?
No. Like, I'm not going to pledge my allegiance to another football league until I know it succeeds. I'm sorry. I've been down this road far too many times, guys. I was around for the original USFL in the early 80s, okay? And then the Waffle, as Chris Berman called it, the World League of American Football. And then we had the XFL not once but twice, and we've had the Alliance. And the Alliance actually got the football part right, but the guy who was their honeypot was in some SEC trouble and suddenly couldn't access any of his funds, so that was problematic. When the USFL shows me it can exist and there's an appetite for it, then I'll pick a team. Like, I know we love football. I mean, I know we love NFL football. I have yet to see us prove that we love anything other than NFL football or college football in the fall. Nothing else has managed to stick. If it sticks, I'll pick a team.
I love that. That is fair, though, too. And over 112 million people watch the Super Bowl, which just continues to show, Trey, football, NFL.
Most watched show in 5 years. It's most watched show in 5 years. Most watched TV show in 5 years. Tell me again how football is dying. Get out of here.
I love it. The question I have for you now, your thoughts on the NFL Scouting Combine. The atmosphere for players will be bubble-like. However, obviously the athlete representation group, Athletes First, they rep 23 athletes who've been invited to the Combine. They're working to change it because they do say, like, hey, this is frustrating because they can't work with their trainer, their own trainers, or even, physicists that they do work with, in this situation. It won't be a bubble for NFL coaches, scouts, and GMs, but for players, it will be. Do you see an issue with that?
Listen, if you've had all this time to work out with your trainer and your nutritionist and all that kind of stuff, why do you need him those 3 days in Indianapolis, or how many days you're going to be there? The Combine is a test. Okay. Let's be honest. The Combine is a test you study for. And if you haven't studied for it enough, by the time the actual test date rolls around, that's on you. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for the guys that can't be there with it. Like, you should know the drill by now. You should know exactly, or be going through that process right now. And if not having that exact person there with you for those 3 days, I get it. All athletes are creature of habit. They want to be in their comfort zone. I understand that. But to excel at the NFL, you have to be outside your comfort zone. You have to be able to prove you can exist outside your own little bubble in a different area, in a different environment. What better way to show that than to just show up the way the NFL is going to make you do it and follow the process. So listen, again, we're in this situation now where they still have weeks to prepare. Just prepare, and you'll be fine.
We have some guy named Brett-averse in the chat. I think his name is Brett Yer. Says, tell Trey I miss him. Beard looks good.
Yeah, I'm in full, like, I'm not shaving again for a while. So, like, yeah, that's sort of standard operating procedure this time of year. I'm trying to be the next Cody. That's what I'm trying.
I'm with you. I'm trying to do it too. I might just grow it out, and people may not recognize me here in about 2 months. But our next question comes in from Shane Sockrider. He asked, the Eagles publicly backed Jalen Hurts at the end of the year pressers, but all signs point to them trying to acquire a top-end talent given their draft capital they have this year. Russ Wilson, Deshaun Watson both said no to the Eagles last year. Could you see that being viewed differently this year?
Yeah, look, you can say anything you want now because it doesn't matter. Or you can say anything you want at the end of the season because it doesn't matter. They should say we're backing Jalen Hurts 100%, because if they can't get a deal for a better quarterback, they can say, I told you, we had Jalen Hurts all along. The worst thing they can say is, yeah, he's all right. I don't know, maybe. And then they don't get an upgrade, and then they're with maybe. And Jalen Hurts is like, what are you talking about? Maybe, people need to understand when people say things, when they're true, when they say them. Yep. That's it. That's the only time you know that they're true. Now, they may play out true down the road, but a series of events have to be gone through before we can actually get to that point. So, of course, they should say at the end of the season, hey, he's our guy, until he's not. And that's the absolute smart thing for Philadelphia to do. You should look for an upgrade if you think you can get an upgrade. And if you don't get it, you can say, see, I told you he was our guy all along. But for them to say anything else would just be stupid.
Yeah, you don't want to reveal your hand too early, and it gives you the idea to lose your leverage to other teams that could swoop in at that point there. So I think that's a great question there from Shane. Brian Mahaffey says, do you think the Bengals are the favorites to win the AFC North next season, or could we see the Ravens and Browns rise back up and challenge them?
We've already talked about the Ravens probably being better next year, and I think that's likely. The Browns are a hot mess, and I think they're coming to the realization they might have picked the wrong quarterback. Let's just be honest about it. Like, I like Baker. Tough as nails, strong-willed kid. There's a reason it didn't work out with Odell. Odell might have been part of that, but Baker was absolutely a part of that as well. No question about it. Baker has got to prove that he can be a more consistent playing quarterback. It's that simple. I don't have a lot of stock in Cleveland right now. They had everything lined up for him this year, and they couldn't find a way to make it work. And some of that is injuries. I understand that, believe me. But they let a player that might have been the MVP of the Super Bowl walk because they couldn't find a way to make it work. That's the telltale sign of a bad organization. Okay, you have a player like Odell, you find a way to make it work. The Ravens, I think, will be much better next year. Just remember all the injuries they had, especially in the offseason, especially at running back, which is
getting a lot of people back.
Yeah, a huge tenet of what John Harbaugh wants to do on offense. So, listen, the Bengals, I would put them as co-favorites, maybe with the Ravens, but that's as far as I can go. At Caesars Sportsbook right now, the Chiefs are, of course, always the Chiefs, plus 700 to be the Super Bowl favorite next year, and the Bills are plus 750. I think the Ravens and the Bengals are like plus 1,400, plus 1,000. I think it is.
Some significant difference between those four teams there. Shannon Grimes asked this question here. We have free agency coming up in just about a month from now. Which potential free agent are you most looking forward to seeing where they maybe end up in 2022? There's a lot of big names out there. Really hard to gauge right now because there's not a lot of movement at this time.
Well, we could have the wildest quarterback offseason we've ever had. You mentioned Philadelphia, right? Look at all the teams that are going to need quarterbacks right now. Tampa Bay is going to need a quarterback. New Orleans needs a quarterback. Seattle might need a quarterback. Green Bay is potentially moving on to the guy they drafted, potentially. I mean, we could, and the whole Deshaun Watson thing is still out there, okay? Let's just take those three names. Let's assume for the sake of this discussion that Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Deshaun Watson all move this offseason. That's insane, okay?
Yes.
That's absolutely insane. And then you have a situation where you're going to have bidding wars for guys like Jameis Winston, potentially, who played well with the Saints, but now he may want to go back to Tampa Bay, having figured out maybe I don't need to turn it over as much because Tom Brady is retired, and I don't believe Tom Brady's coming out of retirement. I mean, stranger things have happened. See Brett Favre a few years ago, but, the run on quarterback talent is going to be unbelievable this year because New Orleans needs one, Tampa needs one, and Pittsburgh needs one, right there. Philadelphia might think about getting one. There's only so many of those guys out there. I just think this quarterback offseason could be as frenetic and weird and crazy as any offseason I've ever seen, especially for really good, high-quality veteran quarterbacks for a variety of different reasons.
If it's as wild as maybe it could project out to be, football fans who just want to say one thing, make sure you strap in your seatbelt, buckle up. It'll be a wild offseason. Final one for you here today, Trey, and I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to sit down and talk with us here on PFN Daily. Comes in from Trip Wagner 93. Do you think that the Lions could be the next Bengals? Now, I think it's a little bit of a stretch, considering where they're at. I did love how competitive they were, but, I think they still have a lot of things they need to address.
Well, then you're assuming that Jared Goff is going to be able to do what Joe Burrow did, right? That's the whole thing, right? That's a great comparison, actually, Trip, because I do a weekly radio show in Detroit, and then right before the Super Bowl, I said, let me explain how crazy it is, right, where the Bengals are right now. This would be akin to next year, you and I having the discussion about the Lions winning the Super Bowl in a day, because they had the number one pick for one of the worst second, third overall this year, the Lions. I can't remember what they were.
I believe so.
Top three, whatever, for a reason, okay? And because they were bad. But now, to do what the Bengals did, they're going to have to literally win 12 games in the regular season in 2022. Is that possible? Well, it certainly helps if Aaron Rodgers is out of the division, but I don't see that kind of turnaround. I respect Dan Campbell because I think the players respect and play hard for him, unlike the situation in Jacksonville with Urban, where they were playing as independent contractors because they couldn't wait to get that guy out of there. But listen, Detroit is Detroit. Their resume stands for themselves. So until they can, same thing with the Bengals. Until you prove to me you're not the Bungles, and they proved that this year, then I'm going to look at them that way. Until Detroit shows that they can get out of their own way. And I love Dan, but he made a bunch of questionable coaching decisions in the last part of games that really backfired. And so I don't see it. Is it possible? Sure. But I'm not looking at the Detroit Lions going, oh, yeah, we'll see them in the Super Bowl next year.
Well, appreciate your time here today. Trey Wingo, obviously a lot of fun work that you're doing on behalf of Caesar Sportsbooks, not to mention the More Than Football podcast here at Pro Football Network. To my understanding, we'll be on location now doing some interviews here throughout this offseason. So that'll be fun to obviously have the behind the scenes look at that. But ladies and gentlemen, you can also check out More Than Football, a Trey Wingo podcast, free and available everywhere you get your podcast. And Trey joins us every single week for PFN Daily here on twitch.tv/Pro Football Network. Trey, I appreciate you and your time as always, my friend.
All right, Cody, be well, be safe, and let's see how this beer goes. All right?
Hey, we'll have a competition here. I'm looking forward to it.
You win, by the way. You win.